Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic, a discussion between a professional film critic and lecturer and me, his wife, who just likes to watch movies for fun. I'm your co-host, Julia.
This is Barry, film critic. Hello, everyone.
And tonight we're talking about a very strange film. I think
I'd say so, but I mean, I love this movie. The reason I wanted to watch it with you is it was the day they announced the wonderful people at Criterion who make these wonderful, basically film school in a box is what I call them. They put together these wonderful discs and Blu-rays of these great films where they preserve them. They give them an upgrade and they give you just the best extras. I love what they do. They just announced that After Hours is going to be released in the collection. So I realized you had not seen it, and I said, well, it's on HBO. Let's watch. I love this film. I haven't seen it in some time. And in fact, the last time I watched this film is when I taught a class on the films of Martin Scorsese at UCCS. This was over 10 years ago. This was back when the last film he had made at that point. This was in 2006, so it was The Departed had just won Best Picture. So I'd done a class where we watched all of his films in chronological order, kind of looked at, the trajectory of his career, the themes of his movies, where he was in his life and his growth as an artist. I'll say quickly about After Hours. It came at a really fascinating time in Scorsese's career. So in 1983, Martin Scorsese was going to make The Last Temptation of Christ, and it didn't happen. The studio, Paramount, was uncomfortable with it. They just kept cutting the budget. They're like, we really don't want you to make this movie. Can you do it for cheaper? And at that point, Aidan Quinn was supposed to play Christ. And, Last Temptation, the movie, which eventually was made, like the book by Nikos Katsantzakis, is not intended to be blasphemous, even though many have perceived it that way. It's Scorsese, a devout Catholic most of his life. He wanted to make a movie that asked these very provocative and necessary questions about the nature of God being both man, both God. And basically, the movie just came apart on him. He'd worked on it for so long. Robert De Niro, his friend and frequent collaborator, even said, hey, like, if you need my name, if you need me to be in this movie, I'll be in this movie, even though I don't really want to be in The Last Temptation of Christ. I'll do it if it helps the movie get made. It wound up being all for nothing. The film just didn't happen. So Scorsese, basically, he tried to get another movie going, and it wound up being The King of Comedy. And The King of Comedy, it's a very dark drama with Robert De Niro and Jerry Lewis. And now it's a cult film. Now it's considered one of the great Scorsese films. But when it came out, it was a huge, embarrassing bomb. A lot of people hated it, didn't get it. So this was a film that Scorsese was like, I'm really interested in doing this. And he came to find out that Tim Burton was going to make it his film debut.
After Hours?
Yeah, Burton had never made a movie before. And Burton was circling the project. David Geffen was the producer. And apparently what happened, it's so cool. Apparently what happened was Burton got wind of this. So Burton went to Scorsese and he's like, I love you. So yeah, man, here, take the script. I'll do something else. And Burton went and made Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Very cool. Because Burton's like, okay, like Scorsese's the guy for this. So Scorsese made this film. It's a little movie. It was very much, as in his words, it was like going back to film school, doing this movie that's like, there's, it's a lot of scenes of people in rooms talking, complicated in some ways, but like, really like a student film. And he had the time of his life making the movie. And it was not a huge box office hit, but it was perceived at the time as a return to form. It's one of my favorite films. I'll say it's my number 2 favorite Martin Scorsese film.
That's funny because I've never heard you talk about it.
Do you know what my number 1 favorite Martin Scorsese film is?
What?
Silence.
Oh, yeah?
We've talked about that on
we have.
On this program.
That was like back one of our...
Number 3 favorite Scorsese film? Cape Fear.
Oh, yeah. I do love Cape Fear.
He's known for his mobster movies, but I swear, like, Scorsese is such a versatile filmmaker. I'm always throwing out, everything from Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, The Age of Innocence, Griffin Dunne. My favorite gangster film of his is Casino. There's so many films, The Aviator. He's made great films that have no gangsters in them. He's a brilliant filmmaker. His versatility is off the charts. And here he is making this little dark comedy. Yeah, I love this movie.
All right, well, let's get into it because this movie, I did not know what to expect. I think I went into this one totally blind. And it kind of is one of those takes place in like 12 hours kind of films. Mm-hmm. So we meet Paul Hackett.
Played by Griffin Dunne.
And he's just a computer data entry worker in a company. It's like boring job. And he's just
I feel bad for people who do this in real life because this is never depicted as a good job. You know what I mean? Maybe the most glamorous depiction of this is like Neo in The Matrix. But beyond, they all work at cubicles. Their life sucks. The job sucks. Do these guys ever sit at a cubicle like, God, it's like that movie After Hours. Oh, I hate this.
No, they probably just think of Office Space.
Yeah. Office Space romanticizes this position.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
So he goes home and actually he goes out to a local cafe in New York.
Well, we don't want to talk about his opening scene where he's giving job training to Bronson Pinchot.
Yes, Balky.
Before he played Balky on Perfect Strangers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this was a year after his scene-stealing bit in Beverly Hills Cop. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Celebrity cameo, first one.
Okay, so he goes to a local cafe, and here he meets Marcy.
Played by the wonderful Rosanna Arquette.
And this is just kind of like most of the conversations in this film, just a little bit quirky.
Yeah, they're talking about Henry Miller, because he's reading Henry Miller. And... so they have a conversation about that, and it's kind of this wonderful, like, oh, okay, this attractive woman in this diner by herself. They're having a conversation about literature. They're kind of hitting it off, but as the conversation goes on, it's not the first time he realizes that she doesn't really do small talk. What she talks about tends to be devastating. She basically has an inability to have kind of cutesy conversations. She talks about really heavy-handed things and tragic things that happen to her, and this is kind of the start of that. So
then she's basically like, "Hey, I'm going to my friend's house tonight, and she's an artist, and she sells plaster of Paris paperweights that resemble cream cheese bagels."
Yeah. Even the first time I heard that, I'm like, oh, I want to see that too. That sounds great. Thank you, movie.
It's such a weird detail.
It's a great detail. I love that. Yeah.
And so she basically gives him the number and like, yeah, if you want to buy one of these paperweights, like, give my friend a call.
Everything is just a little off for Paul because in addition to his job sucking, he initially doesn't have the proper means of writing down her number. This is the 80s. If someone tells you their phone number and you forget it, you're never going to see that person ever again. There's no social media, nothing. This is it. So you kind of share his it's a brief moment of desperation. He goes to the cashier and asks for, I think, a pencil, and he writes it down in his book. But yeah, I love that detail because it's like, yeah, I remember that aspect of that decade. Someone tells you your number, you write that thing down immediately. You tattoo it on your arm.
I bet we had better memories back then than we do now.
I still remember the number of my childhood home. Do you?
Yeah, me too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, everybody, let's call it.
Okay, so later that night, he calls the number under the pretense of buying one of these bagel and cream cheese paperweights. And Marcy's like, yeah, why don't you come over? Why don't you come over in a little bit? And gives them the address. It's basically going to be like 1 a.m. when he does this. So, he's definitely going, this is like a 1985 booty call.
Absolutely. And it's Rosanna Arquette who's dazzling. So I get it. I've seen where he works. So yeah, this definitely sounds more exciting than showing Bronson Pinchot how to use the cursor. So yeah.
Yeah. So he takes a cab to the apartment and the windows are open in the back and he takes this $20 bill. And I'm not sure exactly what he was trying to do, like why he didn't leave it in his pocket, but he tries to put it in this little
slot for the taxi cab driver. Yeah,
and it just flies out the window.
Yeah.
Gone.
And it not only is the film sped up a little bit, but the indication is that this is this is the first of many moments where it's like nothing is working out for this guy at all. This taxi cab drive is it's like an ascension into hell, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, hold on. I'm going to find out what $20 is back then.
Oh no, you're doing this again. Some movie math.
It's like $280.
The value of $20 in 1985?
Yeah.
Well, no question. it could go a lot further than it does today. You go to McDonald's with $20, you could probably buy dinner for everyone in there.
I mean, that's crazy. So that's like a ton of money just flying out the window.
Yes, literally.
Yeah. So he tells the cab driver, and the cab driver is just leaves. He's kind of like, F you.
Yes.
So now he has like 75 cents in his pocket. That's all he has. And he goes up to the apartment, and this is where he meets Kiki.
Played by Linda Fiorentino.
Who supposedly makes these plaster of Paris paperweights resembling cream cheese bagels. And she's like just kind of dressed in like a bra and like mini skirt, and has like just art stuff like all over her hands. And she's putting together some kind of...
this plaster statue.
Yeah, that looks like a screaming man.
Yeah, and Paul Hackett makes a reference to Munch's The Scream and does not impress Linda Fiorentino at all.
She's very unimpressed. Yeah. But at one point, I don't know where Marcy is. Did she like step out for a minute?
I love the contrast because, Paul is a very earnest character. Over the course of the night, we see how his problem is that he's very nice, but he's also very curious, and it's not always a good mixture when, for example, you're in the presence of Kiki, who is not nice and actually quite annoyed with him. It's the first of many times it happens over the course of the evening.
But at some point, he ends up giving her a massage.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Because they're waiting for Rosanna Arquette so long that it's like, well, I might as well just give you a massage, which he does.
Yeah.
And she falls fast asleep.
Yeah, she just totally falls asleep. I think massage. Paul's thinking maybe Kiki booty call?
If it doesn't work out with Marcy, like maybe Marcy like climbed out the window and she's left him there,
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah.
So anyways, like Marcy comes home and they go into her room, and I don't know, it gets kind of weird.
Oh, I'd say so. Yeah. I mean, look, so this is when I knew the movie really wasn't working for you, because I had to stifle a lot of my laughter, and I'm like, oh no, you are not digging this movie at all. Because there's a shot in it that always makes me laugh, and I'm like, I can't laugh right now because you're going to think you married a monster. So Rosanna Arquette is on the bed with Paul, and the conversation turns to a time that she was molested. And again, like, it's not the content of the conversation. What's funny is she can only tell him these things. No small talk. Everything that she tells him is about life tragedy. So she's talking about this time where she was sexually abused, and it's a very long, drawn-out story. What's funny about it is his reaction and the fact that it just doesn't end. And the thing that always just makes me laugh out loud, she's telling this story about when she was abused, and she kind of looks in the opposite direction. She's like, and that's where he climbed through the window. And the camera like pans quickly over the window, like, there's where it happened. It always makes me laugh, but you clearly weren't digging this movie. I'm like, if I laugh right now, I don't know. I think you'd be really upset. So I know. I'm like, oh man, this may not have been the best idea.
Well, there's a weird thing where Kiki is like talking about how she's so glad she doesn't have like burns all over her body.
Yeah.
And makes Paul think that Marcy may be like disfigured or something in some weird way. And then after her stories, I mean, okay, she's talking about a time she was like assaulted, basically, right. Like, oh, that's really going to put someone in the mood. I mean, he's like, get me out of here.
And again, to be clear, listeners, like, there's nothing funny about what she's saying. The dark humor comes from this guy who, again, like, he's not like an 80s sleazy character. There's a way to play him that way. Griffin Dunne is not playing him. This guy is curious. He's lonely. He's bored. He's nice. He was going to spend the night reading Henry Miller Alone in a diner, and he actually met a girl who's not only very attractive, but he could actually talk to. So, like, you do get the sense, like, he's in it for the conversation. If that's all it is, it's not like one of these things like what she has to put out. No, like, he'll do this. But this has become like really awful because he's not a therapist, and she's pouring her guts out to him. And, it's just, he feels like the walls are kind of closing in on him. Yeah.
So he like breaks out of her room and the apartment and tries to go home by the subway, but he doesn't have enough money.
Yes. Yeah, it's a great bit where it's kind of, again, like a lot of things happen over the course of the night where it's kind of challenging him. It's like, is he going to continue to be nice, kind of a conformist, one of these guys who doesn't break the rules, or is he going to basically, turn to survivalist mode? And so he basically apologizes to the cop who's like, what are you doing? And he basically gets laughed out of the subway station. By the way, before we go any further, what does this movie remind you of?
I don't know.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons I like it so much. And when the few critics, when Eyes Wide Shut came out, mostly it was like, there's not enough nudity or sex. This movie's supposed to be dirty, and it's not, or it's too long and boring. The people who were smart and liked Eyes Wide Shut said, this is actually kind of like a hornier After Hours. I'm like, yes. Because for one thing, one of the things I love about After Hours, it gets something that is true everywhere, not just New York. Places are different at night, especially a city. There are parts of cities that, seemingly are just like, oh, that's that nice little diner. That's that really like quaint little cute neighborhood. Let's go there. They're different at night. The world just seems like a different place at night. And you take places that are already eccentric and weird and full of weirdos, and it just becomes a whole other world. So I love that aspect of this movie because it's about these diners that are open all night and the strange people that go to diners in the middle of the night, who are having like, a full-fledged meal at 3 a.m. or going to a rock concert that lasts until the sun comes up. I mean, that's a whole kind of vampiric existence.
If anybody's curious, we did talk about Eyes Wide Shut on February 18th, 2022. So check out that episode.
Because if this conversation isn't scintillating enough, well... wait till you hear about us talk about a 2.5-hour Stanley Kubrick film.
Yeah, no, that was a good one.
That was a good one, yeah.
Okay, so he's like pleading with the subway guy, like, can you just like give me some extra money? Because like at midnight, the price went up and he just didn't have enough. By what? Like 10 cents or something?
Something like that, yeah.
It was something so small.
Yeah.
And then he's like, fine, I'm just going to jump the turnstile. And then the cops, he's like, oh, sorry. And he just like runs out. So at some point it starts raining. So he goes to a bar, this like sad.
That is the only word for this bar. It's absolutely.
And this is where he meets Julie, the waitress.
And John Hurd, the bartender.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, he kind of like starts talking to the bartender and kind of gets him on his side. And he's like, I'll give you some money to get home, but he can't open his cash register.
Yeah.
It's like he needs the key. So he's going to tell Paul.
It's like the world is really turning against Paul because this should have been the end of the film.
Yeah.
Gives him the keys. Yeah. It gives him a little bit of money, just a nice gesture, and that's it.
Yeah. Like $1 he could have
Paul
made
gets home and he's like, oh, okay, wow, that was weird. Yeah. But it's like in ways both very small and massive. It's like everything on planet Earth is just turning against Paul.
Yeah. So he goes up to Tom's apartment, and he also has learned that there's been a string of burglaries in this neighborhood. So he goes to Tom's place to get the register key, and then he spots the burglars, and their names are Neil and Pepe.
It's Cheech and Chong, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
This is your first Cheech and Chong film, isn't it?
I don't know. Maybe.
Yes. This is your first. If that's your answer, then yes. This is your first Cheech and Chong movie.
So they look like they've stolen one of Kiki's man sculptures that she made out of plaster of Paris.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, and they drop it. It gets totally
mostly
broken.
Shattered, yeah.
Yeah. So
and they take off. And this is the thing I like. As they take off, the dialogue is indicating that they weren't actually stealing it. They actually purchased
bought it
legitimate from her, which is hilarious that these guys would want this art. But, the movie is making fun of the SOHO art world of the 80s. Another movie that does this that I love that's out of print is Tom Schiller's Nothing Lasts Forever, a brilliant film with Zach Galligan, Bill Murray. Everybody who's a film fan needs to seek that film out. It's brilliant. It needs to get released. But anyway, yeah, this is one of those movies that was making fun of the SOHO art world at this time. And I think it's an angle that I think really works because there's something so amazing and so ridiculous about the art in this movie.
Yeah, and instead of just being like, oh my gosh, okay, it broke, I'm going to go back to the bar. No, he takes the sculpture.
He's a good Samaritan. He's a good guy.
Kiki.
He's a nice guy. Carries it up a flight of stairs. And because it's in the position that is, I mean, it looks like the statue is like getting a piggyback ride off of him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he goes back to the apartment and Kiki's like, oh, you really should apologize for leaving Marcy. And so he goes in there to talk to her and she's killed herself. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Did she kill herself because he left?
No, I think it was always going to happen. Yeah, I think, I mean, from her monologues, I would assume that, I think he was like the last person to listen to her testimony, frankly. Yeah, I think she was probably planning it over the course of the night. Yeah.
It's so sad.
It's very sad, and I gotta say, Rosanna Arquette does Dead really well. There's some shots where her eyes are open and she's looking lifelessly away from the camera. Not easy to do. She does it really well.
Yeah,
her performance is excellent, but I gotta point this out. It's hard to do, especially when the camera's on you for a long time. Even Janet Leigh famously couldn't do it in Psycho. You could actually see her throat retract at one point. But anyway,
okay, but this is like the one part where you're like, Paul's being a creepy creep because he
wants to see if she has got that scar.
Yeah, if she has scars. And he finds out she doesn't have anything.
I'm not saying it's appropriate, but I was also curious too. I'm not saying I would have done it if I was in his shoes, but I was like, thank you. I was kind of wondering too.
What? Oh, but he's like looking at her naked dead body, like
he wasn't undressing her. He's just like, and he finds a telltale tattoo.
Yeah.
Which winds up being an important detail. So see, it's good that he did this.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's not. I'm kidding.
It's kind of weird. Okay.
Everything is weird.
But before he found that out, he sees Kiki with her like S&M
played by Will Patton
boyfriend. Yeah. And like she's like tied up and they're just, who knows what they were going to do before he walked in. But he goes.
That's a whole other movie.
He goes out to talk to Kiki and she's like, oh, we went to Club Berlin, come meet up with us if you want. so like they had no idea that Marcy just like offed herself
right,
in the back room.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I think, to put it one way, I mean, I think her running into Paul was probably maybe the best thing that happened to her that night. She's probably been overcome with depression and sadness. I mean, it is tragic and sad. What's hilarious, and again, I didn't dare to laugh at this out loud because I'm like, I don't want you to think I'm so terrible. Paul very carefully leaves signs around the apartment that say dead body with an arrow pointing to her picture. Again, I'm like, I can't laugh at this because you're not going to want to remain married to the film critic after this. But
okay.
I thought it was funny.
Okay, to put your mind at ease, I am the one who watched, what movie was it that I laughed at with Christian Bale?
American Psycho.
Yes. When we watched American Psycho together, I mean, I was cackling and you were like, wait, this movie's funny?
When you and I first started dating, you told me Christian Bale was your favorite actor. And I'm like, you haven't seen American Psycho. Interesting. So I was kind of I don't know if I want to show that to you, but you were insistent. You knew his work up to that point. He had just been cast as Batman. The new Batman movie hadn't come out. So I'm like, you really should see this. He's incredible in this. But I warned you. I said, like, look, this is a shocking film. I was kind of horrified by it. I knew the book really well. And you were laughing through most of the film. I'm like, that was, and I've said this, like, and I mean this complimentary, like, I don't think I realized how funny that movie was until I watched it with you. And the fact that it was directed by a woman, adapted by a woman, says so much. The movie has a lot to say. It's not just making fun of a yuppie. It's making fun of men in general, that movie. And I did not realize it the first couple times I saw it until I watched it with you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can see why this movie is similar in that sense.
It's drawl. Like, it doesn't, you're watching a comedy. I don't think the movie really tips his hat. And that's what, Scorsese doesn't really make comedies. He makes movies about people who are funny and they express themselves comically, famously Pesci and Goodfellas and other things. But yeah, it's, he doesn't do comedy from like a broad, self-knowing perspective. It's just like the characters are funny and that's where the humor comes from.
Okay. So, but again, poor Paul. So he's like, oh yeah, I got to go back to the bar. But now Tom's bar is locked and there's a sign that says we'll be back in half an hour. So Paul meets Julie, the waitress, again on the street.
Yeah, it's Terry Garr.
Mm-hmm. And she invites him up to her apartment. And then she gets real strange. Like,
Which at this point should be no surprise. There are no normal people in this movie.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's also New York at night, so of course there's no normal people in New York City. Yeah, she's got like an old 1950s Flo the Waitress hairstyle.
Yeah, like a beehive.
Yeah, forgive me. Yeah, that's what they're called. And she's in his apartment. And it's one of these things like it's two grown-ups who are alone in an apartment together. They're attractive, so she's kind of like, hey, you want it? And he's like, no. He's kind of baffled by her sudden interest, understandably.
Yeah, he's like, do you know what kind of night I've had? And doesn't she draw a picture of him
She
or
does.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange.
And it's good. It's a good picture.
So then he finally returns to Tom's bar, only for Tom to get a call informing him of the death of his girlfriend, who is Marcy.
Dun, dun, dun. And, the movie tips it off because Marcy had a skull tattoo. And his key chain has a skull on it. So I think, that was the early indication of, they're connected.
Yeah.
It's this little neighborhood where everybody's connected to each other. Not completely believable because New York is so vast. I mean, a different neighborhood is like a different planet in New York, especially in a neighborhood like this. But okay, fine.
Yeah. So
it's like Eyes Wide Shut in that way. They're all connected.
The whole time Paul's talking to Tom, there's these like two guys, like S&M gear, like totally making out at the bar. And it's just like, just everything in the movie, you're like, okay.
This is when, this is that age when New York had, Studio 54, bathhouses. Different than it is now.
Yeah. Everyone's just out and about.
Koch years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Garbage on the streets. This is the Nighthawks years of New York.
Oh, yeah.
This is the New York when, I dig the guys in S&M gear because they wound up being very helpful when he comes back in the bars talking to one of my favorite things is because they're listening to this conversation between Paul and Tom the bartender, and and Paul's like, I'm so sorry about your girlfriend, and one of the S&M guys goes like, it's okay, man, it's not like it's your fault, and it is.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, poor Paul. Okay. All right, so now he is in search of Kiki, and I guess Horst is the name of her S&M buddy.
I love this movie has designated S&M buddies. Excellent.
Yeah. So to inform them of Marcy's suicide,
Yes.
So he goes to Club Berlin, and there's a group of punks that attempt to shave his head into a mohawk.
It's that kind of movie.
He's such a yuppie that the guy, the bouncer, like, will not let him in. And he's kind of like, it's Mohawk night. Like, you can't come in here. You don't even have a mohawk. All right.
So there's an attempt to get his head shaved. He manages to mostly escape that.
Yeah.
There's a patch of his hair that gets shaved off, but for the most part, he survives Mohawk night at Club Berlin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then Paul meets an ice cream
Vendor.
truck driver named Gail.
Played by Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah.
Fresh off of Second City TV.
You see her and you're like, oh, okay, maybe like finally a normal person, but no.
Well, the fact that it's played by Catherine O'Hara should have tipped us off.
It should have.
This is about 6 years before she became most famous cinematically for looking right into the camera and going, Kevin! And her Home Alone husband is in this too.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. So he goes back to her place and I don't know, they're hanging out. And then she decides that
she's just annoying because she lets him use the phone. Like finally a helpful character.
Gosh.
Finally someone who's going to get this poor guy home. And she keeps screwing with him whenever he answers the number.
Manhattan, please. Could I have the number of a Peter Patzak? That's Patzak.
Need a pencil?
Nah. On Mulberry Street. Thank you.
5, 8, 1, 9, 6, 2.
That was funny. Patzak, please. Patzak on Mulberry Street in Manhattan. Thank you.
5, 8, 6, 2,
Don't.
9,
Don't.
3, 8, 0.
Now I have forgotten the number. What is wrong with you? Are you all right?
And she thinks it's really funny. I mean, there's something very universally recognizable about this. Like, wow, she's one of those annoying people.
Yeah, like he calls information to get a phone number, and then he's trying to remember the number, and then when he hangs up to dial it, she's like 7, 8, 1, 4, 5. Like the most annoying little sister you've ever had.
Sure.
And she does this multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah, she's awful. It helps that Catherine O'Hara is playing this role, and so
she's just like cackling. Like
O'Hara makes anyone instantly less loathsome because she's playing it. But yeah, this character's awful. Just oh my gosh, it's like this guy can't cut a break. There are no nice people in New York.
Yeah. Okay, so she thinks that he's the burglar plaguing the neighborhood.
Yes.
And so she has like a mob of local residents trying to like pursue him.
Yeah, and a great visual is that her ice cream truck, complete with little ice cream jingles,
The Mr. Softy truck.
are searching for him. Like basically, instead of like flames and pitchforks, it's like Mr. Softy jingles and a bunch of people like looking around for Paul. Yeah, it's great. It's such a weird visual.
Yeah. So Paul discovers that as payback for rejecting Julie, they use an image of him in a wanted poster that names him as the burglar.
Yeah, this is the picture that Terry Gard drew.
Yeah, because she lives right above like a printer.
Right.
Like, and she's like, I can make as many copies as I want.
That winds up being a very important detail. Yeah.
Then you're like, oh my gosh, she just printed like 100 of these posters with
Just covered her neighborhood with it. Yeah.
And so he's walking around just like ripping them all off. Oh my gosh, this poor guy. Okay, so he ultimately goes back to Club Berlin as it's about to close for the night. And there's like, one bartender and then like one random woman named June who's just sitting there.
Yes, all by herself.
Yeah, and so the bartender's like, yeah, you can hang out here. But doesn't he say something about June? Like, she's here every night.
She's always here.
Oh, yeah, she's here
by herself every night, yes.
Yeah. So
no red flags. Like, okay, she seems nice. Works for me.
So Paul uses his last quarter to play a song in the jukebox. And him and June dance. So then Paul explains that he's being pursued, and because you can see that the mob is trying to get into the bar. I mean, these people are like, it's crazy. They're nuts. They're going nuts.
Yeah. So yeah, the mob comes into the bar looking for him, and Paul briefly explains his situation to June, and June encases him in the same plaster paper art project that he saw Kiki doing.
Yeah,
hours
because
earlier.
she like lives underneath this bar, and so they go downstairs, and she's got all her creepy plaster of Paris things, right?
Yes.
Oh wait. Okay, I just wanted to mention, doesn't one of these women have one of these bagel and cream cheese paperweights?
Yes, it does. It does manifest. It does show itself.
Yeah,
at some
is
point.
it Julie?
I believe so.
The one who has the printer?
Yes, that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
and she's like, oh, look at this. And you're like, oh my gosh, they actually do exist.
Yes,
is
and,
like
and
a real
Paul
thing.
proceeds to destroy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I mean, if you think that's ridiculous, I mean, this is the exact same decade as, burger phones. This is back when everybody had burger phones.
Oh my gosh, I wanted one
things?
of those so bad.
I mean, they look cute on 80s sitcoms, but you look at them now, and it's like people had serious conversations on those things.
Well, like,
can you imagine?
teenage
Like,
girls did.
Well, yeah, but I mean, some houses they actually had them in the living room. People would answer the phone and be like, "She died?
Wait.
When's the funeral?" They're talking into a burger phone.
Okay, did you actually see someone have a burger phone as their main phone?
Yes, in the living room or like in the
No.
kitchen. Yes, a burger phone. They're talking into the burger phone. Oh man, did he make bail? Hold on. Sorry, I'm gonna put the burger phone on my shoulder. Hold on, let me write it down. When's the trial date? So I'm talking on the burger phone right now. I'm sorry, I'm talking to the cops. Just hold on, I got the burger phone. Sorry, the wires are tangling on my legs. I got the burger phone. Hold on.
Okay.
People used to have it. Yeah, so the 80s.
It wasn't just teenage girls.
No, people had these. I've seen these tacky burger phones, and some of them actually had glowing neon on the buns. It's just, this is the age of Teddy Ruxpin. You know, for all the advances in technology, the 80s had some stupid tchotchkes, and you could find them at thrift stores everywhere.
I wanted one of those burger phones so
You
bad.
can still get one.
No, they'd probably be like $200 now.
You go to the right, you go to the right thrift store. They got like one where only one bun is still working.
Oh my gosh.
The other one doesn't have any neon on it. No, I'm gonna get a burger phone. That's settled.
So Paul is in June's like weird plaster of Paris art covered apartment. I'm like, what is it with all of these artists, and they all have these strips of newspaper and glue, and they're just like making these random.
It's like they all discovered this at the same time. Paper mache. All right.
I know. Yeah. It's so strange.
Yeah.
So she's like, let's make you a sculpture.
Yeah.
And so when the mob breaks into the bar, they also break into June's apartment.
Yes.
I mean, these people are nuts. And so he's just stuck in there. And after the mob leaves, he's like, okay, you can get me out now. And she's like, no.
I think she realized, this is my masterpiece.
Like,
I've just been waiting for someone to come down to my basement.
This is serial killer, stuff.
Oh, it's great.
Like, June is crazy.
So June may be the biggest monster he's met that evening.
Yeah.
And he's hung out with Catherine O'Hara in her Frosty truck. Yeah, this is bad.
He's hung out with artists, a suicidal person, like tons of S&M people. Mm-hmm. And this like old lady.
And Cheech and Chong.
Yeah.
But this lady is
the one.
Yeah, she's
like, you never would have known it. See, we judged everyone by their appearances earlier in the film. And then the one that we're like, oh, she seems sweet. Total. She ends up being the craziest.
June is like the reverse of Paul. She is sad, lonely by herself in a diner in the middle of the night.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Paul wouldn't do this kind of serial killer stuff.
I think enough nights like this, Paul would become June.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's depressing.
Well, now he becomes a part of her furniture.
It just became really dark. Oh,
It's after hours. Yeah, it becomes dark. Yeah. So what happens is, he's stuck. June leaves, and we basically get these shots of, because all we can see are his eyes. He's got some breathing holes, but basically Paul is stuck inside of this statue. And I mean, it's kind of funny, but really it's horrifying.
No, it's horrifying because I was like, oh my gosh, this is how it ends. He's just going to like emaciate inside of this thing and just like die in there. And she's just going to have like this living, breathing, rotting sculpture at some point.
I like that ending.
Really? No.
Well, anyway, so...
Okay. Neil and Pepe,
Cheech and Chong save this movie.
They break into the Club Berlin and steal Paul, thinking that he's the sculpture that they had dropped on the street earlier, and put him back in their van. And then as the van speeds away, they take a sharp turn. The van door opens and Paul just like flies out. And the plaster of Paris breaks.
And when you know it, he fell out right in front of his job.
Yep.
So he gets up, dusts himself off. He's covered in white, but he's basically still fine.
I mean, it's like, what?
And it's just as the door opens up.
It's 7 a.m.
It's time to get to work. So he just walks upstairs and starts his day all over again. Yeah.
Like, what a surreal evening. I would be like, you know what? I'm just going to call in sick. I'm not going in there.
Well, it's eyes wide shut. It's this idea of, if you are a kind person, if you are a generous person, or if you're generally someone who stays out of trouble, does not like conflict, if you're suddenly in an environment where everyone is a threat and you are out of your element and you don't have the money or the understanding or the connections to get out of it, you're going to be hunted at some point. And that's what happens to Cruise in that film. That's what happens to Dunne in this film. So the fact that they survive at the end, it really is just a matter of random circumstances, as random as the circumstances that they find themselves in. So it's just like how random luck, makes it a full circle journey in both cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
The original ending of this film, which they did not shot, but they storyboarded, and I've seen the storyboards.
June is a serial killer?
No.
Oh.
The mob is trying to find Paul. So June says, I have an idea. So Paul climbs inside of her, and she walks to the Lincoln Tunnel, gives birth to him, and then the movie ends.
Which is like, what?
I don't know. I still want to see that ending because it's so crazy. I don't know. I mean, maybe you would come across as, I don't know, misogynist. But
Not rooted in reality?
Yeah, no, not far-fetched at all. No, I don't know.
Because everything that happens in this movie, like, okay, it's so far-fetched, but it could happen. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's emotional honesty because, many have said, like, it's very Kafka. It's very much this paranoia, this idea that everyone is out to get me. The world isn't working. The world is working against me. I'm being accused of things I did not do. I'm being hunted for things that I do not deserve to be hunted for. It's like it's mob mentality, going after an innocent man. And it is true. Like, the movie's probably more of a thriller or like a horror film, really, than it's just a general comedy, which is why I'm sure it rubs certain people the wrong way. But yeah.
Well, and I guess I skipped over. There's one scene where he goes to some guy's house and he like tells him the whole story.
Yes, and that was also the thing they used in the trailer. That monologue. It's a funny monologue where he explains to a guy everything that happens beat by beat.
So why does he go to that guy's house?
I can't remember.
Like
I can't remember at the moment.
The description I was reading was the guy thought he wanted to have like a sexual encounter. But I'm thinking, Paul's thinking he just wanted to like get off the street because of this mob, maybe.
To give Mr. Scorsese some credit about this, I mean, this was a time when if you were dealing with a movie that was showing, depicting either underground or
kinky things.
Well, basically, just the gay club scene of the 80s. We're talking about Police Academy, like total mockery, just like total, So like, I like that Scorsese is like, look, this is a part of it. This is what it's like. This is what you're see. And I'm sure like there's obviously an element of caricature. I don't know that two guys in full S&M gear would go into John Hurt's bar and start making out. I don't know how real that is, but the
only part that felt really mockish was like, give him a mohawk.
Right, but beyond what I'm saying is Scorsese's not making fun of anybody in this movie. They're not, they're really, I didn't see any caricatures in this film. You made the point that the film has a distrust of women. Oh. It's valid. It's totally valid.
I was like, why are all the women so crazy?
That's a valid question. And especially, again, like talking about the original ending of the film, it's like, okay, maybe this is a guy, it was, let's see, the screenwriters. Let's see, let me pull that up.
Well, I wasn't saying the movie was misogynist.
I'm not saying it's misogynist, but I mean, Joseph Minion, Joe Frank are credited writers. You do get the feeling like maybe someone broke up, had a bad breakup, and just wrote this screenplay right after.
Yeah, because every woman is crazy.
It's one of these things where, sometimes when you meet people and whether it's a date or a friendship or at a party and you talk to them for 5 minutes, you go, oh, this person's crazy. I need to like slowly back out of the room and get out of here. I mean, that's what happens with every person. Even John Hurt's character, every character in this thing is unhinged and unreliable. Maybe the nicest person in the movie, in the first diner that Paul goes to and when he meets Rosanna Arquette, the guy who runs it, it's the wonderful Dick Miller, character actor. And Dick Miller has the line that gives the movie its title. He says, it's, hey, man, different rules apply. It's after hours.
Well, what's funny about that guy is Paul goes in there and he needs to use the bathroom and he's like, customers only. He's like, okay, I'll order something. So he goes to the bathroom and then...
That's a different guy, but yeah.
No, it's the same guy. Because he goes...
No, the diner at the beginning of the movie where he meets Rosanna Arquette for the first time. This is later in the movie where he's on the hunt from the mob.
I think it's the same diner.
I think it's a different diner.
Oh, okay.
Pretty sure.
All right, well, anyways, he goes into a different diner then. And he says, like, you have to order if you want to use the bathroom. And so he's like, all right, burger and fries. And then he ends up, like, leaving because I think the mob's after him. And then he comes back for some reason, and the guy has his food ready. He's like, here you go. And he has, like, no money. It's like, oh, no. How are you going to pay for this?
It's a funny moment because it's like, oh, you're back. I've been waiting for you. No one has come in here, so.
Yeah, here's the food you ordered.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good stuff. Scorsese, the movie, again, was a bit of a rebound for him. He followed it up with, at the time, the biggest commercial success of his career, which was The Color of Money. And the success of The Color of Money, the sequel to The Hustler with Tom Cruise and Paul Newman, which also won an Academy Award, it gave Scorsese the the creative power and also the cachet to make his dream project. So in 1988, he finally got to make The Last Temptation of Christ, and for that film, he was rewarded with mostly protests. Lots and lots of protests and angry people. I don't know. It's funny. Like I wonder to this day if he feels like it was worth the trouble. Because man, that film got pummeled. But mostly by people who had never seen it. I like the film, for the record. But yeah, like this was this in between movie. Like After Hours, many people have said, like, Paul Hackett running through the streets and looking up at heaven, going, "What do you want from me?" And freak people said, like, this is probably exactly what Martin Scorsese was going through, finding Last Temptation of Christ, like just getting every plug pulled out of it until it completely flatlined. And here's this guy who's an artist, and suddenly a studio is going, like, we're not going to let you make this movie no matter how hard you try. Just as Paul's desperately trying to get out of New York, or rather out of SOHO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but go back to, I don't think the men are as crazy in this movie as the women.
No, I think the men are nuts. Because let's talk about the men. So Cheech and Chong, nuts.
Okay.
John Hurd, crazy.
Horst,
homicidal. Yeah, the men are nuts. They're all nuts.
No, but like there's the night.
And who's sympathetic in this movie?
The Club Berlin bartender. He's decent. He's like, yeah, you can come in here and hang out with Crazy June.
Okay.
Yeah.
One dude. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
He like helps him like escape.
Okay,
basically.
Him and Dick Miller. All right, the two. All right.
So there are a few, like I would say, a couple guys. Even the one he tells his story to in his.
But
apartment.
the guy who lets him in, maybe June's like, the first guy you see, you tell him to come in here, and you tell him that I'm nice and that I sit here every night and no one ever talks to me, so that when I have him alone, I'll make him my latest art project.
You do it. You do it.
I'll give you half of my earnings, and I'll give you co-credit on the installment on the latest art.
Oh my gosh.
So no, he's probably part of her thing.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah.
Oh.
No,
Yeah,
there are no good people in this film. Paul's the only good person, and he's punished severely for his kindness, curiosity. Although basically the world punishes him for sneaking a peek at Rosanna Arquette.
Yeah.
He definitely suffers for that.
I think that's
Greatly.
why.
You think that's why?
No, I don't think that's why. But I mean, it just what? Okay, lesson. Maybe don't go out in the middle of the night with just like a $20 bill and no backup plan.
No, I think the first part of the sentence. No, even if it's Rosanna Arquette and she wants to meet you at 11:32, don't go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
but I love that you're like, only $20. I mean, at least bring 50.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know what? My mom always said, like, nothing good ever happens after midnight. And I think that,
Your mom says that?
yeah.
What does she mean by that?
Like, like, come home, don't be out, getting into trouble. Then I was like a teenager.
Oh, man. Your mom has missed out on some good times.
What? Were you out, like, a lot when you were younger?
When I was in my 20s, I was a vampire. Now I'm like, okay, we'll finish this movie. It's 8:30. Yeah. So someone whose career, unfortunately, didn't quite go up with this movie, unfortunately, was Griffin Dunne. I love this guy.
Yeah, because I had never heard of him.
Well, I'll talk about it for a second. He's a wonderful actor. American Werewolf in London is probably his most best known movie, and he's excellent in that. He's excellent in this. So he still does supporting roles now and then. You'll see him do character work in movies, and he produces a lot. You'll see his name, the executive producer, Griffin Dunne. He did 2 movies after this that killed his career, and they were leading roles. One was he was in the Madonna vehicle, Who's That Girl? And that movie, it just didn't work. It's nobody's fault. Not Madonna's fault. The movie just doesn't work. It's a bad film. But then he did a film, and Marty and I talk about Marty. Hey, Marty, my executive producer. We talk about this movie a lot because the fact that this movie even exists is kind of astonishing. So Griffin Dunne did this movie called Me and Him. Do you know what that movie's about?
No.
Do you want to guess? I'll give you 3 guesses.
It's about, wait, it's called Me and Him?
Me and Him. What's that movie about?
And Griffin Dunne is the me?
I'm not saying
Oh,
that.
wait.
What's it about?
Is it about like him and a dog or something?
That's one guess. Go ahead.
Okay. Him and a monkey?
No. I love this. Keep going. One more.
Okay. Him and I don't know.
Okay. No.
An elephant?
Good guesses. So, no, this is good. So, I swear to you, I'm not making this up. It's going to sound like I'm making a joke. This is a real movie.
Okay.
So, Griffin Dunne plays a man whose penis talks to him. And it's called Me and Him. The penis is voiced by Mark Lynn Baker of Perfect Strangers. So, another Perfect Strangers reference. So, Balky's neighbor, Mr. Appleton?
Yes.
Mark Lynn Baker was the voice of the penis.
Oh my god.
And, you hear that and you think, how could that movie possibly not be hilarious? Well, they find every way for it not to be funny.
It's not funny?
It's so terrible. It's embarrassing how they take,
Wait, how does it talk to him? Like,
only he can hear it.
oh, like telepathically talks to him?
Yes, it's a telepathic penis. It's jokes like he goes into a club and Mark Lynn Baker's like, hey, come on, let's go check her out. It's that kind of thing.
Oh.
There's a dream sequence. I mean, it's weird because to describe it sounds kind of funny. It's like there's a dream sequence where the penis dies and there's a funeral for the penis and the tombstone is shaped like a penis. And it's like, you figure that would work, and I don't know if it's the timing. I don't know if the movie is just so crappy, but nothing works in that movie. It's like, maybe for a 3-minute Saturday Night Live skit, maybe that's why. It's really that kind of a premise. But yeah, I mean that movie. I think they're like, okay, let's do Look Who's Talking, but wait for it, penis, not a baby with talking penis. Anyway, so
Does it talk to him Is there a scene where he's having sex and it's talking to him?
Yes, and yeah, again, to describe every scene in the movie, I mean, there's a scene where he's like, I need some advice about my job. He tries to get professional advice from his penis, nothing. It's really weird. By the way, this movie has not been released. It was on video cassettes, and when the day it came on video, I'm like, oh, I couldn't put that thing in the VCR fast enough. Oh man, Me and Him. I think Marty and I watched it together. I think I've only seen it once from top to bottom, but I mean, it's so embarrassingly, agonizingly bad. It's not funny. It's so terrible, and the fact that he was in that film, he met his wife. He was married to Carrie Lowell at the time, who was in that film. But beyond that, nothing good came of that movie, and that was kind of the end of his leading man status for a while.
Wow.
Yeah, Me and Him. And by the way, that movie, it barely played in theaters, and it just became I mean, that was the year of Do the Right Thing and Crimes and Misdemeanors. Some amazing movies came out in '89, and they're also released this year was, on the other hand, it was Me and Him. So Griffin Dunne starred in that, so that kind of ended.
Oh, it's a remake of an Italian film that I will not try to pronounce.
Now I want to see the Italian film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was #1 in Germany for 7 weeks.
Susan, do you want to go see Me and Him? It's playing the theater. What it is about, Inga? Well, I tell you, it is about a man. His Braunschweiger talks to him on a normal basis, asks him all kinds of things. Oh, that sounds delicious. Let us go see some movie. Yeah, let's go see Me and Him. Hello, one for Me and Him, please. Oh, 2 actually. Inge wants to see it too.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what accent that was, by the way. I think it was Swedish. Yeah.
Oh man, if anybody looks this up on Wikipedia, the the art of the just it's like a picture.
That's the German poster. The American poster is very similar, where it's just a close up of a dude's crotch and a little cartoon bubble saying Me and Him.
Yeah. A close up of his crotch with a cartoon bubble. Wow.
Yeah, that was the high concept way they promoted it. No, I mean, I suspect the studio knew what they had, and they're like, oh, this is bad. Let's just see if we can make anything off of this. Yeah, it's never been released on any hard media, never released on Blu-ray or DVD, and it needs to be. I really want to see that film again.
It really should. Is it out of print?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, probably, and maybe, for the best. Again, seriously, talking about it is so much better than actually sitting through it. But yeah, that's pretty much why Griffin Dunne did become a leading man, because I love this guy. I would compare him to Jeff Daniels. maybe you can come up with a more compelling choice for a leading man, but like he is reliable, he's relatable, and he just gets under the skin of every character he plays.
Dude, we could watch it on Roku channel.
Oh, okay. Well, I know what
or
our next episode is.
Tubi.
Oh, it's on Tubi? Oh, yeah. That's done. I'll watch me and... Let's watch me and him. Because we really want to, after talking about a Martin Scorsese film, we really want our listeners to go in the direction of art and, and high creative performance. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's the theatrical poster I'm used to.
Me and him. Okay.
Wow.
It's on Tubi TV, folks, if you want to check it out.
Wow.
And
I'm so glad we tracked that film down.
Yeah, After Hours is on HBO.
Oh, man. I'm so sorry, Mr. Scorsese, that our conversation became about a talking penis film. Yeah, so for those of you who are longtime fans of Scorsese, and if you're like me, if you're just nerd out about this guy because, he's just done so many different kinds of movies, Scorsese did a segment of an anthology film called New York Stories, and the name of that anthology segment that he did is called Life Lessons with Nick Nolte and Rosanna Arquette, and that's also about the New York art world. It feels very much like a cousin to this movie, talking about that specific moment in time, all these artists living in these little communities together, and the kind of the destruction they bring to their lives. It's done for comic effect in After Hours. It's not so much for in Life Lessons, which is great. So tell the listeners how much you hate this movie.
No, I didn't
You hate it, didn't you?
I didn't hate it. You know what? The thing I told you is, you cannot predict what is going to happen next.
Yeah.
There's no way.
You can't get ahead of it. I love it. Yeah.
There's no way you're ever going to know or try and figure it out. Every scene, every decision that this guy makes, you're like, what? What are you doing? Like, it's nothing that you would ever think of. So in that way, it was definitely a little bit of a ride. But by the time he gets thrown out of Cheech and Chong's, van, and the plaster of Paris is just smashed on the ground, you're like, oh, thank God he's back at his boring job. That was a wild night. I didn't know if he was going to make it. I thought he was going to rot in June's apartment forever. So. Or
the other ending, which we did not see.
No. But I didn't hate it. But yeah. Now that we've talked about it, I do have more of an appreciation for it, I think.
But you would never watch it again.
I probably wouldn't watch it.
So my Criterion disc arrives in the mail in September, and I'm like, Jules, look what it is.
I probably won't watch it
You're
again.
going to be like, okay, I'm going to be on a road trip. Bye.
Road trip. I mean, if there was some interesting extras, maybe I would watch that. But
okay, I'll hold you to that.
Yeah. But you probably catch me watching Me and Him, before you catch me watching After Hours.
Is it going to be like Die Hard and Mad Max Fury Road, where I'm going to come home from work and I'm going to find you watching this movie alone?
Yeah, exactly.
Tell you listeners, it's like a great source of joy and just bafflement. I come home from a long day of work and Julia's watching Mad Max Fury Road by herself. Like, oh man, I married the right person. This is great.
Well, I was curious, so thought I'd put it on. All right.
So, I love this film. I think it's a perfect movie. I really do. Howard Shore's...
Perfect movie?
I think it's perfect.
Wow.
There's not a scene in it I don't like.
You wouldn't change anything about it?
I love when he goes into the bathroom and he sees the graffiti of the shark biting on a penis. By the way, a precursor for Me and Him. I love this movie so much. The Howard Shore score that sounds like a clock ticking. I think this movie is exciting because I love the energy of it. I love that you're going, where is this going? And it just doesn't tell you. And every scene just goes in the exact opposite direction that you imagine. It's almost like the movie was designed to have this nightmare logic. But it's believable enough, but it's strange enough that it makes you uncomfortable.
I was expecting him to have a sexual encounter at some point.
Yeah.
And he never does.
And like Tom Cruise in Eyes Wide Shut,
exactly.
He's always a tourist. He never truly partakes in this world.
Yeah, it never happens. And I was like, oh, that was surprising.
Yeah.
Because I was could not predict anything that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So
my other favorite movie from '85 would be Brazil, the Terry Gilliam film, which is also bizarre, also Kafkaesque, also dealing with someone who is in this nightmare spiral of an existence. Yeah. But there's also Me and Him, starring Griffin Dunne, about a man who has conversations with his penis. That film was available on Tubi, and it came out in 1989, co-starring Carey Lowell. You could find that film wherever great films are available. So you could watch After Hours, or you just watch Me and Him.
Okay, so
I feel like I've done a great movie a terrible disservice.
Okay, so you wouldn't change anything?
No, I love this movie. I think the ending is amazing. I love that he ends up at work the way he does. I mean, I even love the use of Cheech and Chong, which is like it's amazing that Cheech and Chong are a Martin Scorsese film, and that they're basically like a plot device. But I love the way the movie goes full circle. Honestly, I have weekends that feel like this movie where, I just feel like the weekend is like, oh, this weekend went by too fast. It's kind of a blur. It's bizarre. Oh, now I'm back at work. It's like, what sucks more? The night that he survived or the fact that he's back at work?
That's kind of true.
I feel like that a lot.
Yeah.
When your work is hard and, you have these nights, and I certainly have it where I have nights where I stay up late because I want to take advantage of the time off. And for whatever reason, sometimes it just doesn't go well, or I fall asleep on the couch and I wake up in the middle of the night like a zombie, and I go back to work. I'm like, okay, 48 hours. It's gone. I don't even know what I did over the weekend. So I definitely know how it feels. And I'll say, when I was a young college student, back when I had a girlfriend who lived in a different part of the state, and I would take the bus to go see her because she wouldn't pick me up in her car. Back then, I used to take the Greyhound to see this girl who will not be named. So anyway, what I would do is, the Greyhound station would pull into Denver, and, sometimes it would be late at night. And I would have my college roommate, my dear friend Jeff Sager, come get me because, I didn't have a car at the time. And so, I would walk around Denver, in the late 90s. It's a different deal now. But,
that was not the late 90s. That was, the early 2000s.
Yeah, it was early 2000s. Well, I mean, even prior to this person who she'll remain nameless.
Oh my gosh.
When I was in the 90s and late 90s and also into the early aughts, I used to have these nights where I'd walk around the city. I remember going to a poetry club, a poetry slam in this bar at 3 a.m. I'm like, well, what am I doing here? And it's like, I'd be listening to these young people like, pineapple, my snapple, my life is grapple. What am I doing here? Listening to bad poetry. I should be asleep. It's 3 a.m. My brain isn't even functioning. I'm drinking like a Shirley Temple so I can stay awake and listen to bad beat poetry. This is awful. And I remember at one point I walked outside the club and it's like, do I walk around the city at night or do I go back and listen to this bad, poetry club, slam poetry? Anyway, I've had nights like that where it's like, again, it's not just that the city is so different at night. People are different at night. When we're supposed to be sleeping, our brains don't function the right way. Reality seems different.
That's why my mom said that. And you were making fun of her.
But she missed out on Slam Poetry Jam.
Yeah,
okay.
Crapple in your Snapple.
Crap my Snapple. I've been to a goth club once. My friend, blanking on his name, I believe it was Jeremy. No, different dude. Sorry. So I had a friend in college who took me to a goth club one night because I was in a play he wrote called Stigma. And he wanted me to see what it was like because it was a play about his life and he had gone to a lot of goth clubs. So I remember going to this goth club dressed kind of like Griffin Dunne in After Hours. I just got off of work. I remember walking around
Did they want to give you a mohawk?
No, but they looked like they wanted to kill me because I remember going down because I'm like, where's the bathroom? Joshua, that was his name, Joshua Schrader. He's no longer with us. He was a wonderful playwright, great actor, but he was a goth guy, and I loved him. And he wanted me to basically play a member of his family. He's like, you got to see my world. So he takes me to this goth club, and I remember I'm walking down the hall, and it was all these white faces, hair slicked back. They all look like vampires. And Josh is like, the bathroom's down there. So he points, and I'm walking down the hallway, and I'm just seeing all these angry vampire eyes watching me as I'm walking down the hallway. and I'm looking down the hallway.
Who's this preppy yuppie guy?
I'm watching Joshua get smaller and smaller as going down the hallway. Am I ever gonna get out of here? Yeah, no, I bet, yeah. So.
Oh, so you really relate to this guy? I
don't think I've ever been in that kind of danger that he's in, but I understand I understand his fascination with it, why he lingers, as we were talking about, like why he's in Rosanna Arquette's apartment that long. Like, why didn't he get out of there so much sooner? Because he's curious. It's like, what is going to happen? This isn't like what the world is like at the daytime. Different rules.
Yeah.
It's after hours. Yeah. So 5 stars from me. I think it's a masterpiece. Yes, I think it's a great film.
Oh my God.
You are appalled. How many stars would you give it?
I gotta say, like, probably 2.5.
Oh, okay. That's more than I thought.
Yeah.
That's exactly 2.5 more stars than I thought you'd give it. So good.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, no, it was
How many
good.
stars do you think you're going to give me and him?
I'll probably end up giving it like half a star. Because if it's not funny, then it's pointless.
Yeah, it's not funny.
Okay.
It's not funny.
So it'll probably just
You're still going to watch it, are you?
I mean, I'm curious. I want to just like see like the first 10 minutes.
It's not like the first 10 minutes like, oh, it was great for 10 minutes. No, that movie just is a non-starter. As soon as that penis starts talking, the movie just
Poor
is, the
Griffin
movie's
Dunne.
over.
Yeah. He's just like...
He's a great actor. It sucks that, Who's That Girl was very high profile. It was a very big movie from Madonna. The soundtrack was a huge hit, so everybody knew it was coming. It was a highly hyped summer movie, and it was a dog, and the movie died quickly. And then Me and Him came next, and it's like, oh God, like...
he's still done a ton of stuff.
He has, but again, it's character work, and I don't say it like he's diminished, like he doesn't do good work. No, he does great work. I've seen him in stuff.
He was in Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah. No, he's popped up in supporting roles and character roles, and he's great. And again, he's executive produced some really great movies. I don't mean to say like he, his career was over, but I mean the whole leading man thing, which should have happened more. I mean, he should have had like Michael Keaton's career. Frankly, he could have had that. I think after this movie, it looked like that was going to happen. And it didn't, because he did the talking penis movie.
Yeah, he was in a lot of TV too.
Yeah, he's great. No, he never stopped working. He's great. He comes from an actor family. Yeah.
Oh, that's where I saw him. Okay, he was in This Is Us, the TV show.
That. I thought you were going to see My Girl. This Is Us.
No, he was the main guy's brother. And the
Studley TV doctor?
What?
That's the show with the guy who's like the Studley TV doctor, right? That guy?
No, the family. Mandy Moore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I was watching him in this movie. I'm like, he looks familiar, but I just couldn't, I couldn't place him. So, anyways, all right. I figured it out.
So, what do you think you're going to see next? The Last Temptation of Christ? Or Me and Him?
Well, okay, you and I did talk about reviewing The Last Temptation of Christ.
I missed my window. I was actually going to write about it and publish an article around Easter time. I'm really glad I didn't do that. That might have gotten me in some trouble. So,
Mr. Window.
I know. Yeah, those windows are deadly. But no, I will, because this year is, 35 years, the 35th anniversary of that film, and I do want to go back and look at it. It's to say the least, it's one of the most unusual and remarkable films that Scorsese has made, so I want to look at that. No, seriously, if you're a fan of Scorsese and you've seen Mean Streets and Goodfellas and The Departed and Casino and all those great gangster movies, and they are great, but this guy... He had so much in his arsenal. He's done every genre you can think of. Yes, even musicals. Scorsese he's one of our greatest living filmmakers because there's just no film that he can't make materialized into celluloid, into film. This is a guy who lives, breathes, eats cinema, and he is capable of giving credibility and authenticity to anything that he makes. I mean, After Hours doesn't feel like a movie that was shot on sets. It feels like a movie about a guy who enters another world or another version, like The Mirror, The Other Side, the Alice in the Looking Glass, version of New York. It's one of our great masters, and this movie is a masterpiece.
All right. That concludes our conversation of After Hours. Thanks, everyone.